Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good day. I hope you're well. Welcome back to another one of my videos. This one is one that really came from a request. And the request was for a video around how to manage a situation where you've got conflict in the team, conflict brought about by change. So somebody was reorganizing their team, they'd taken on additional work, and they were expecting to face some challenges. And we talked about the idea of how we face different forms of resistance. But if we understand it, we can move from one phase to the next. And you can see from the illustration that there's really five stages that we are going to talk about today. The first stage that we're going to talk about is this idea of passive resistance. We know that there's such a thing as active resistance, but for now, we're going to dismiss it because active resistance is fairly obvious and it's something that you should be addressing if you're not already. So, passive resistance, as you can see from the graphic, is very much about compliance without commitment. So, this is where somebody is just going along, doing what they're told to do with absolutely no engagement, no sense of ownership, no real sense of engagement. So, we start or sometimes at a form of passive resistance that can typically move towards this idea of protective compliance. And that is where we sat down with somebody who's a passive resistant and we've said, look, this is not really where we want to be going. We really want to see something different from you. And by now, there may be a performance improvement plan, or they may just simply be aware that they're not really giving what's expected. So we tend to move somebody from passive resistance towards a protective compliance status. We then want to take them towards a point where they're engaged. By being engaged, not that they're starting to not just tick the box, but starting to take a little bit of ownership around what they're doing. They're starting to apply their judgment. They're still working within very much within their boundaries, but they're starting to slowly get engaged in what they're doing. So we take somebody from protective compliance to engaged contribution. We then want to move them towards the idea of shared ownership. And that is where we want them to start not only feeling like they're a participant in the outcome, but they're a direct influencer. So they can start shaping what's going on, why we're doing things. So again, we're going to take somebody from an engaged contribution where they're now working to a point where that they now share the ownership and they're now starting to feel like they can directly influence what's going on. We're giving them more freedom to move. And then finally, as we tend to perform, we look at this idea of stewardship. And that is where we really feel like we own the process, the outcome. We are not just responsible, we feel a sense of stewardship. We want to put it in a process of continual improvement, if you think of it that way. So when we look at our teams, we will find that they will sit within one of these five stages. And what we're trying to do is slowly move everybody from phase one to phase two to three to four and ultimately towards phase five. Now, not everybody's going to go towards phase five. Not everybody wants to, and not everybody should. Ideally, that's obviously the ideal outcome, but people have different levels of engagement. But providing we keep people away from passive resistance and just being performative, the protective compliance element, we're doing well. So if you find yourself struggling to get your team to engage with change, think about where they are. Where are they sitting on this scale from one to five? Passive, protective, engaged, shared, or are they really stewards? And you will find this like a seesaw. You want to tip the balance in your favor over time. Anyway, that's it. A nice quick one today. If you've got any questions at all, don't hesitate to give me a shout. Otherwise, I'm recording this on a Friday where the weather's very grim outside, hence the scarf and everything else. Um, so keep warm, keep safe, and keep smiling. Okay, you take care now. Bye.